you join the stage live with one man that many people think can post an impressive time this afternoon, Frederic Kasyakov, riding with the Astana team in the service of Vincenzo Nibali, with an opportunity for himself to shine today. And there is the provisional standings. Well, Alex Dowsett, the reigning British time trial champion, has set the bar very high indeed. Very impressive time out on course from the early runners, and it's going to be tough to beat it. And Euskaltel squad. Going Martinez de Esteban will be feeling a few butterflies in his stomach, you can be pretty sure, because very demanding course for all the riders, and it's not easy to get through. Even if you're not a time trial specialist, you're going to have to make a big effort to make sure that you make it inside the time limit, because this one's up and down all day, left and right, lots of tight roads. And as I say, it's Alex Dowsett that has set the early standard. His time of 1 hour, 16 minutes and 27 has given him a fighting chance, I think, of ending up in the top 10. Steph Clement of the Blanco squad just over half a minute behind. Luke Durbridge 35 seconds behind Dowsett. Manuele Boaro of Saxo Tinkoff has come in with a time 45 seconds behind Alex Dowsett. So Dowsett, Sean, has given himself a really good chance of a top finish today with that time, especially the way the weather is changing.
Yes, that is going to be an important part of it. If the weather really, gets bad for the last riders, well, then it will knock the average down and the time down. And it is a very technical course here. There's a lot of it, real technical stuff, as we can see. Mark Cavendish coming over there. He's not really pushing it. 1:26.05, so he's 9:38 down already, and that's going to be the interesting one. But a really difficult time trial for the sprinters, but also for the men who are doing the general, more difficult again, because it's a demanding time trial. But it's a time trial that I think gives maybe the non-time trial specialists a little bit of an advantage here, because they won't not lose as much time to the real specialists like Bradley Wiggins. If it was pan flat, well then Nibali and the teeny the climbers, they would use a huge amount of time. So here, they should be able to limit their losses to an extent, but the weather conditions at the moment not looking good once again, and that's going to have an effect on the last riders out.
Peter Stedden of Garmin Sharp, a climber who's thinking of other days. Tough climbers day tomorrow, actually, and definitely a tough day in the saddle. And this stage is a tough day for the riders, and it's sandwiched by two tough stages as well. It's not like they have the rest day tomorrow to relax and get through, or a flat stage. They've got to think about conserving energy, but it's so difficult to do in a time trial. You really do have to make a big effort, even if your only goal is to make sure you're inside the time limit.
Yes, I think everybody's going to have to make the effort today. The non-time trials, the sprinters, it's going to be a difficult day for them. They are going to have to push on and give it, quite a big effort, because the time limit will be always a concern, and there will be the concern, with the real good time trials like Bradley Wiggins, because he can do such a fast time, and they're always concerned that the time limit will be difficult for them. So they do push on, they give it a big effort today. So it's really equal for everybody. The general classification men, they really have to go deep. But so tomorrow we might see a day where everybody's a little bit tired. I think everybody will feel the effects of the last number of days, and especially the time trial today.
Juan Jose Cobo is out on course. He's been replaced as the team leader of the Movistar team by Beñat Inchausti, and Cobo's had a race to forget so far. He's had all sorts of crashes and incidents and dramas, and not really a factor. The winner of Vuelta a España a couple of years ago hasn't really been able to replicate that form since. Cobo now sitting 127th overall at 46 minutes and 50 seconds, so it's all about the potential for stage victories, and perhaps he'll be asked to help out Inchausti. If Inchausti's able to hang on in a decent GC position remains to be seen. So difficult times for Cobo as he pounds his way up this final hill. Rains have abated a little bit at the finish line. I understand that out on the course there are still little sprinklings, and that's very much the weather story. We're going to have the potential for rain coming and going during the afternoon at different places, and it's the uncertainty of that that's going to add to the anxiety for the likes of Bradley Wiggins. We talk about him so much, we should probably talk a little bit about his performance yesterday, Sean, because he really tiptoed down that final hill after falling off. It was, I think, a case in his mind of discretion being the better part of valour. Yes, he lost a minute and a half, but you know, maybe it could have been so much more. That might have been his thinking.
Well, I think he, limited his losses after the crash. He was very nervous, and of course, when you go down and you're being careful, then you're nervous, and it's difficult to get going again. You lose your confidence a little bit, and we could see Bradley Wiggins was suffering there, but they were not long of the descent left, so he got down it pretty well, and the team is of course waiting at the bottom. That was the important part. He had the two Colombian riders from the Sky team waiting for him, and they really pushed on, because we did see coming in when he just got onto the end of a group, and the two Colombian riders lost a number of seconds each. They had made a big effort to really close down that gap, and it could have been a much bigger loss, but it's not something you want to lose time against the big favourites, but that is racing, and it happens. And just yesterday was so slippery. We could hear from Nibali there. He said it was so slidey out there yesterday. When you hear that from him, because his bike handling in the wet or dry conditions, it just tells you what it was like. We see what it's like the way the riders were, sliding out so easily, and they certainly weren't going that fast, a lot of them. Nibali, maybe he was pushing on big time and pushed his look a bit too much, but the other riders were not going fast, and especially Bradley Wiggins. He was coasting down, and just the bike left and went from under him.
Francis Moret of Française de Jeu gets set to head away from the start gantry, as Giovanni Visconti, we saw in the blue jersey of the Leader of the Mountains competition. He just about retained the lead of that competition through till tomorrow. No mountains, of course, points on offer today. Emanuele Sella has moved up to within 1 point of Visconti though, as a result of his efforts, and Stefano Perazzi and Adam Hansen are locked in third best points, just one further point behind. So 4 riders now within 2 points of the Lead of the Mountains competition, and 4 tough hills for them tomorrow, including a first cat ascent. Meanwhile, back, and not surprisingly, the camera is focusing on Freddie Kessiakoff to see how he's getting on. The man who was 5th in the World Championship time trial last year. Regularly a top competitor in time trials, and I think how he performs as well will give us an indication of how this is playing towards the specialist time trialists, and how it's playing towards the climbers. Obviously, Alex Dowsett, very much a specialist climber in his first Grand Tour, and he set very, very impressive intermediate split times, and indeed a final time. 1:16.27 is the time they're chasing. Dowsett was quickest through the second intermediate split at 1 minute 1 hour, I should say, 8 minutes and 38 seconds. And that's the target for him within the last 10 kilometres for Kessiakoff. Can he challenge Dowsett's time? Dowsett leads at the early stages of this Stage 8 time trial. Welcome back to Stage 8 of Giro d'Italia. It's the individual time trial from Gabice Mare to Saltara, 54.8 kilometres for the riders today. The benchmark time has been set by the Briton Alex Dowsett. It's the time they're chasing, 1 minute 16. 1 minute 16. Or 1 hour 16 minutes 27 seconds. Karsten Kroon very careful, and look, one of the Bardiani riders has dropped it.
Colbrelli, Sonny Colbrelli.
Wow, doesn't feel too sunny right now, I don't think. Very massive frustration, and he's been in the wars already, as have pretty much all the riders. I wonder how many riders out there have managed to avoid crashing at this point in the Giro, just coming to the end of the first week. And it's certainly been a war of attrition out there. And now he's had to pick up a road bike. And we've had a question in on Twitter. Remember, the handle is @DQ Sport, as we get a sight of Karsten Kroon. A little bit more careful through there. And the roads don't look wet there, so I think he might have just have overcooked it. And there are so many opportunities. It is absolutely treacherous. Yeah, you can see it is a little bit slick in the shadows there. Obviously there is a little bit of dampness under wheel. And we've had a few questions in about what the ideal setup here is. It full time trial bike, or is perhaps it might be worth having a road bike for the final hill?
Well, we haven't seen anybody yet, and I don't think to make the change that the advantage you're going to get, you might win a few seconds, but in the change you will lose a lot. And after being on the time trial bike, for 50 kilometres, well then if you change just a little bit over 50 kilometres, you change at that point, difficult maybe to adapt. So I think everybody will just finish on the time trial bikes, because the other sections are definitely all for time trial bike, and it's just that last run up the last kilometre here drags up a lot, and it's where people will lose time. But if you're still feeling good, feeling strong, it's very possible to do it on the time trial bike and still keep a very good rhythm.
Yevgeny Petrov heads away from the start gate, currently 39th overall, 3 minutes 44 down on Benyatin Shasti's time. Danilo Honda, at 39 years of age, gingerly works his way through that right-hander on cobbled streets. Average speed 38 kilometers an hour for these guys. That I think perhaps indicates just this is a relatively slow time trial by their standards. On a straight flat road they're capable of going at 50 kilometers an hour plus, but plenty of moments where they have to hit the brakes, go around corners, and plenty of hills too. Of course, in your time, Sean, it became quite popular to change bikes at the bottom of those two riders. Decker managing to make it through unscathed without any difficulty, but it became quite popular to change a bike at the bottom of a hill if the time trial finished on a hill. Was it something you did yourself, or? Well,
if it was a long hill, but again, you have to make the calculation. The time you slow down, you get on your road bike and then get moving again, you're going to lose that 30 seconds. And unless it's a long one, because here we have only a kilometre, I know it's quite steep, it kicks up to quite a percentage, 13% in the middle of the last kilometre. But I don't think it's going to be anything for riders to start changing their bikes. I think they will just continue on the time trial bikes. If you have a long climb, 5 or 6 kilometres at the end, and we have 50 kilometres beforehand, then we might see some changing, but I'm afraid we'll not see it here. Back in the days as well, of course, in the mountain stages of the Tour de France, when you did not have lightweight bikes, sometimes the riders, the really good climbers, had bikes specially built with much lighter equipment on them, so they would make a change of bike before the final climb of the day. But nowadays, of course, the minimum bike weight allowed by UCI, all the bikes are very close to that, so there's no need to change.
Oh, a bit late getting going there. One of the Team Blanco riders in a bit of a flap. Oh, and he's late getting away, and that's a bit careless, you'd have to say. Juan Manuel Garate. And he's well up overall, 38th overall, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And riders at this end of the starting order really wouldn't want to be making mistakes like that if they've any overall ambitions. Petr Ignatenko feeling the pain and suffering on this hill. It'll be interesting to see what bike Sir Bradley Wiggins comes out with later on. There's been an awful lot of talk about this new Pinarello Bolide, which he decided not to use in the team time trial. Went with the same Pinarello Graal bike that the rest of the Sky Pro Cycling squad had. But this new Pinarello Bolide has, well, it's been suggested that wind tunnel tests have indicated that it's got a 15% reduction in drag, and it's 5% lighter, so that's win-win all around. And if that's the case, then it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't use it. One wonders why he didn't use it in the team time trial. Maybe he doesn't feel entirely comfortable on it at this point. And indeed, with all the climbing and all the twists and turns, it'll be interesting to see whether perhaps Bradley Wiggins opts for a road bike with the triathlon handlebars, similar to the setup that he had on the Col d'Es time trial in last year's Paris-Nice. Seemed to work fine, but that pretty much all of that time trial was uphill, whereas there's an awful lot of there is a decent amount of flat road section where Wiggins and co might feel that it's not really worth the penalty of having the road bike on that part of the road. 200 and run riders signing on this morning. Plenty of riders in the wars yesterday, and question in on Twitter at DQ Sport from Graham Kidd. Any word on rider injuries from yesterday, especially Sir Brad? Well, plenty of riders were injured. There's a list as long as your arm of riders that headed to the medical centre to speak to the doctor afterwards to get their bruises and cuts, etc. 10-2. Pim Lichtart, as I said, got 6 stitches in that elbow wound that he sustained. It didn't stop him from finishing yesterday. They're made of stern stuff. Ignatenko continues to plough on. So Bradley Wiggins, I can tell you, is as far as Dave Brailsford and the team are concerned, is absolutely fine. Just a couple of cuts and bruises, no issue there at all. So Alex Dowsett still the benchmark time setter in this time trial. 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Welcome back to stage 8, the individual time trial. 54.8 kilometres for the riders today from Gabice Mare to Saltara, and Frederick Kesiakov has almost completed the arduous journey. He's up this final finishing climb, but he's not going to win this time trial because Alex Dowsett's time of 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds is secure, and Kesiakov a couple of minutes behind that. It will be very lucky indeed to break the top 10 at the conclusion of today's activities. Probably good for about a top 15. Let's run through the order as we see Kesiakov having to work through the cars because he's picking up riders, as you would expect from one of the world's best time trialists. He's other riders less facility in this kind of this particular discipline. Looks like Degenkolb ahead of him. And he's going to put a minute into the Argos Shimano man, and there's an Amiga Pharma Quickstep just ahead as well, who is offering him a little bit of extra motivation, another little carrot for him to chase. Kesiakov finally breaks the timing beam with 7th fastest time. 1 hour 19 minutes and 5 seconds is quite a way off Alex Dowsett's best. Steph Clement of Blanco currently second on the timesheet, just over half a minute behind, 32 seconds behind Dowsett. Luke Durbridge of Arica Greenedge, 35 seconds behind. Boaro, of whom much is expected, 45 seconds down. And Patrick Gretsch, we've seen him a lot in the last few days, Argus Shimano rider. Young German has been pushing hard, and indeed he's been a bit of a star tester in the last couple of years. He's come up with some very impressive results. 7th in the prologue of the Tour de France last year, and 6th in the final stage. So Gretsch is a pretty good benchmark, and that's going to give, indeed the times also of Clement and Durbridge and Boaro, it'll give Dowsett great heart. He's really done an absolutely monstrous ride out there today. Reigning British time trial champion, and as you would expect for a nation that places great importance on that's interesting. We have an indication that Boaro is 45 seconds down. This recorded pictures of Manuele Boaro. Boaro 4th on the timesheets at the moment. Now AG2R have produced plenty of interesting results and efforts in the last few days and weeks. Domenico Pozzovivo, he's moved across to the French squad this year from the Colnago team, which has rebranded Bardiani this year. And Italy's loss is France's gain. This wonderful climber is set to light up the race, but he's going to have to wait, I think, for next week to do it. This time trial not really suiting his particular skills. There's the scene over Pesaro as the riders work their way through this course. The scene at the start in Gabice Mare, I can tell you, is that it's pretty much constant rain at the moment. It's not torrential, but it's still pretty difficult. Tell you what, it's impressive if you're able to smile before a time trial, because wow, they really are moments of great tension. And Mikhail Golas, perhaps he's trying to convince us that he's feeling something different than he actually is, young Polish rider. But yeah, I mean, how did you feel about time trials, Sean? Were you a big fan? You certainly were pretty good at them.
Yes, well, when I really had to ride to defend place in general classification, I could do quite well. But when I was in a race where sometimes, you know, I wasn't in good condition, or maybe races that you would be using just to keep your shape and not really contesting, and there I was very poor in the time trials. And time trial is all about, you know, getting ready. It starts, you know, a day, two before. You have to start thinking about it. As we talked yesterday, you know, riders trying to spare as much energy as possible in the day leading in to the time trial, and then that morning going out and, you know, riding the course, registers and all of that, and doing the normal things that you should do to warm up correctly. And that's something, you know, you gain from experience over a number of years, what way you warm up. And everybody would ride that bike this morning. Of course, they would do, you know, 50 kilometres minimum, and you know, you would do part of that earlier on in the morning, then you would go back and have something to eat a number of hours before your off time, and then you would get back to the start area. And now, of course, we see them just warming up at their buses, and you know, some riders like to warm up for maybe half an hour, some riders a bit less, and you have to do all of that, and that's all part of building up the focus. And then if you do that well, then you're ready. But it's all about concentration all the time, and, you know, on what you're doing out there on the road, registering what's coming up the corners, the descent if it's a technical one as we have today, and then the gearing as well, just to show you keep the right cadence and keep it on the limit, as they say in biking terms. That's the most important thing. Now, of course, you know, with the monitors, the heart rate, you can see how you're pushing. In the earlier days that wasn't available, you didn't have that, so you had to just go by feel and you know, just keep pushing to pretty close to the limit all the time.
Well, here's Haynau, one of the two Colombians that helped Bradley Wiggins to the finish line yesterday. Haynau and Uran both dropped back from the lead group when they realised that Bradley Wiggins was not going to get back into position, and they helped to tow him up to the group he eventually finished in. So he was very grateful, I'm sure, for the help that he got on that occasion. Confirmation that Team Sky are intending to send Bradley Wiggins out on the bolide today. So he's not going to go for the Graal. He was never really going to go for a road bike. It was just something worth talking about, really, just to see what the decision-making process was, what the thinking was. But pretty much everyone has gone for a full-time trial bike. Alex Dowsett with that 32-second advantage over Steph Clement. Luke Durbridge, Manuele Boaro and Patrick Gretsch. And Bradley Wiggins is shortly going to be into the starting position. Just got a shot of Cavendish. Of course, he's finished. He's in and done, 9.5 minutes behind his best time of Alex Dowsett. Petr Ignatenko of the Katusha squad. 47th overall, 4 minutes and 16 seconds down on Inchausti. And parts of this region bathed in glorious sunshine, others under clouds of rain, as Bradley Wiggins gets set to get going. So Bradley Wiggins quite a bit lower down than he would like heading into this stage 8 individual time trial from Gabice Mare to Saltara. 23rd in the standings, and 1.5 minutes and a bit to chase down on Beñat Inchausti if he's to be in the pink leader's jersey at the conclusion of today's activities. And certainly going into this week of racing, this first week of racing, Bradley Wiggins would have expected that this would be the day that he would take the jersey. It's still possible for him to do it, but it's going to be a much bigger ask than he had expected. So Bradley Wiggins gets away in sunshine, and the roads are clearing quite quickly, so that's an indication that there's plenty of heat in that sun. But still in the back of his mind, that crash yesterday and the difficulties he's had this week. It's not been the ideal preparation for this time trial. And what's his mindset heading out on this 54.8 kilometres? Because he knows just how tight and technical this course is, and we get an indication right from the start. Straight into narrow roads, cobbled sections, difficult surface, lots of corners, and immediately into a climbing ramp. It's tough for any rider to get a rhythm. For Bradley Wiggins, well, there's no better man in cycling at the moment, really. Well, very few better, if there is anyone better, at finding the right rhythm for a time trial. And this course is particularly challenging for all that. It's about trying to save something for that final hill as well, Sean.
Yes, it's all about calculation, of course. It's a long one, 54 kilometres and a fraction over. And, the first bit, as you said, it's a difficult one to get into the rhythm. It's a little bit uphill, a very, very light percentage gradient, but still it's going to be, a difficult one to get into the rhythm. As we can see, it kicks up in place a little bit more. So the first 24 kilometres are real difficult and technical as well. There's a lot of cornering to be done, so the right conditions will be very important. Then you have a section after that from 26 to about 30 kilometres. You have about 4.5 kilometres, which is a bit better, and then there's another climb to go through. And at the 40 kilometre mark, there is a flat section before we come to the final climb of the day. So it is one of the difficult climbs, technical as well, difficult time trial, excuse me, and technical as well. So it will balance out a bit. The non-specialist time trialists like Nibali, like the climbers, they will limit the loss a little bit better here against Bradley Wiggins, because if you had a 54.8 kilometres pan flat, that's where Wiggins could just take so many minutes out of a lot of the other favourites. It'll be interesting to see, because Bradley Wiggins is off ill. They'll be losing the time yesterday. He's only a minute behind the rider out in front of him, and that's going to be an interesting one. How many riders will Bradley Wiggins catch on the time trial? I reckon we could see 3-4 riders.
Well, his immediate minute man is Danilo De Luca, Vinny Fantini, and Wiggins will certainly expect not to have any difficulty in catching him. Sergio Henao, of course, is a couple of minutes ahead of him. Wilco Kelderman and Mikael Golas we saw a little earlier.
And Pozzovivo at 5 minutes. It's possible we could see him catching him.
So Pozzovivo is the big target for Bradley Wiggins. Meanwhile, Franco Pellizotti gets away from the starting gantry. Carlos Betancourt a little bit before that we saw for AG2R. Again, top climber and not expected to do well in the time trial. He'll try and limit his losses to the likes of Wiggins and co. Wiggins out on course and in his rhythm. What can he come up with? Join us to see after these. Welcome back to stage 8 of Giro d'Italia. You're watching Bradley Wiggins in the early stages of this individual time trial from Gibice Mare to Saltara. And he is attempting to close down the deficit of 1 minute and 32 seconds to the race leader Beñat Inchausti, who's waiting behind for his slot. He's expected to leave the gantry at 4 o'clock Central European time. That's 3 o'clock if you're in the GMT region. And Wiggins into that distinctive and characteristic style, high cadence, and locks his back out, billiard table smooth, gets incredibly low over the bike. It's an absolutely perfect time trial position, and well, you might try to replicate it, but you probably have to give up after about 300 yards, whereas he's able to sit in that position for kilometre after kilometre, seemingly without any pain. But I can assure you it is hurting, but still wonderful ability. And he's able to generate huge power while he's doing it, because that's of course the trade-off. Lots of people go in the wind tunnel and come up with the optimum aerodynamic position, but can they actually continue to maintain that position for kilometre after kilometre? Thomas Danielson of the Garmin Sharp squad, 16th overall, 58 seconds down on the leader, and a man who could do a ride in the next few days. He's certainly there or thereabouts. Of course, Ryder Hajedal is his team leader. 3rd overall, the reigning Giro d'Italia champion, just 8 seconds down, has a handy advantage on Wiggins, and Wiggins steers this Pinarello bolide machine. It really is a work of art. Those Delta style brakes with those gold covers, just one little detail on a bicycle that has been poured over by the Pinarello boffins for quite a while now, and they believe they've come up with something special to equal and the talents, worthy of indeed the talents of the reigning Olympic time trial champion, the reigning Tour de France champion, and the man for whom many say that the amount of time trialing kilometres in this race was meant to suit. But this perhaps is not the time trial he would have designed. He probably would have sent it up and down a dual carriageway for about 100 kilometres if he'd had the choice.
Well, I think if Dave Brailsford had the choice, he would make it a pan flat one for 60 kilometres. In that case, Bradley Wiggins, would have a huge advantage over a lot of the other favourites in this race. As I mentioned, this difficult one, technical one, it's not the perfect one, but Bradley Wiggins can certainly do that. We see last year on the Tour of France, the time trial to Besançon was also quite a difficult one in sections, and he did a magnificent time trial there. So I'm going to be really interested here to see how much the other guys can limit their losses. And when you look at the general classification, for example, you have a lot of very good climbers up there, potential men for the general classification, and it'll be interesting to see how they can defend. Like a Pozzovivo, for example, Betancourt, all of those riders, you would be wondering how they can do against the real time trial specialist Al Wiggins. And of course Nibali, he is a one, he can produce good time trials, but sometimes he can get into a bit of difficulty. But today's one will most certainly suit him better because of the technical and also the difficult sections in this one. The pan flat one, that's where he would suffer quite a bit more.
Luca Paolini manages a smile, the erstwhile race leader. 5 days in the Maglia Rosa for the Italian rider at the age of 36. He's had his day in the sun, 5 in total, a little bit of rain in there as well, and he wasn't quite able to manage it out front, to stay in that front group yesterday. He tried his very, very best, but he's back into regular Katusha colours for this time trial. And Paolini says that well, he'll be looking more towards helping out his teammate Gianpaolo Caruso, who sits in 4th place on general classification from now on. Someone on Twitter said they thought they saw iPhone earphones for Danielson. This is his teammate Peter Stedden. As I said, a climber who will be looking really to get through this one. His work is to help rider Hejadal in the mountains in the days to come, and perhaps take any opportunity that might be afforded to himself if he gets into a breakaway. The time trial is just something to be survived. Speaking of American riders, we might have expected something from Taylor Phinney of BMC. Of course, won the prologue last year, the short time trial, to kick off the Giro d'Italia, and had some time in the pink jersey, but it's been a tough first week for him. He's been suffering with hay fever and really has been out of sorts, and he finished with a time 5 minutes and 28 seconds down on Alex Dowsett. So no look for Taylor Phinney. Sven Tuft, also of Canada, Canadian national time trial champion, 14th position at the moment, 3 minutes and 40 seconds down on Dowsett. Dowsett sitting in the hot seat. Sure, they have a hot seat actually. They need to get one, I think, because Dowsett certainly deserves all the plaudits that he could be possibly getting at this point. Question is, will Bradley Wiggins be able to catch him? There's no doubt about it that he's going to be able to catch Danilo De Luca, and look at the difference in the way that they're negotiating this hill. De Luca is moving around, his head, his shoulders. Wiggins, by contrast, and will De Luca, when you're not supposed to draft, will really take the opportunity to try and sit and take pace at sort of 8-10 bike lengths behind, which is legal if you're able to follow the tempo of the rider in front.
The only draft he's going to get when he was coming by him.
Yeah, he got a. I'll tell you what, it would have been a significant one. Was it? There was definitely a significant speed differential between these two riders, and I can tell you, Danilo De Luca, top professional rider.
And as you mentioned a moment ago, you know, the time trialing position, we can see Wiggins there just sitting in that aerodynamic position, powering away on a little uphill, and De Luca there, you know, on the top, on the outside of the bars, and you know, no aerodynamic position whatsoever. And that's what Wiggins can do so well. Like, he can just stay in that position, just going up quite steep in gradients, and keep on powering, and just hold on to the aerodynamic position.
A lot of people talking about the fact that Bradley Wiggins is not on the isometric rings. We haven't seen them. I don't think we've seen them on his bike all year. So it is a change of tack for Bradley Wiggins. Doesn't seem to be affecting his progress at the moment. He's on regular Shimano rings. Not sure what size that big ring is. Neil Hudson asking that question. Phillips wants to know, would there be much difference in times if the TT bikes were aluminium and not carbon? To be honest, I don't think so. Certainly not on a flat time trial. It's not going to make much difference. A little bit of a weight advantage if the carbon is put together right. Carbon can be heavier or lighter than aluminium. It's all about how they lay it up. Time trial bikes do tend to be heavier than road bikes, so there's no problem about them. There's rarely a question of them carrying ballast to get up to the 6.8 kilogram minimum UCI weight limit. Although if Pinarello are to be believed, they're managing to get this one very light indeed. Bradley Wiggins tiptoes around that corner. And tries to get back into a rhythm. There's an awful lot of talk about riders riding to a set power and being aware that that power is something that they can sustain for a long time. But of course, when they're off the pedals for a long time, then that's much more difficult for them to do that. So Wiggins is out there at the moment as we watch Petr Ignatenko. Ignatenko out on course and 22nd fastest at the moment. So Wiggins too out on course. Welcome back, riders coming in, and here is the man who has set the benchmark time. It's Alex Dowsett, who heads the provisional standings by 32 seconds from Steph Clement, resplendent in his British National Time Trials Champions skin suit, and it's his fellow countryman Bradley Wiggins that's attempting to chase down that time. It's not going to be any easy ask because clearly Alex Dowsett is on great form.
Mechanical.
Oh, a problem for Bradley Wiggins. And he's had to stop, and his Giro goes from bad to worse. Or is this a schedule change? Well, he decides to grab a bottle, so you get the sense that perhaps this was a decision, or there had been a conversation about it, because certainly they were ready for the change.
Yes, well, I seen given the hand signal there with his right hand, he put his hand out and started, you know, to wave to the team car. So possible just a tyre, a softer tyre, and just had to make the change. I doubt if he's admitted any technical reason to change the bike here. It must have been some mechanical.
Any possibility that he's just not comfortable on the bolide and they hasn't really gelled with it. So let's get aside and see if we can see a puncture. Well, he's certainly calling for the bike there. It's difficult to see. His usual is the typical manner of dispensing with his bike there, but had to go back to it to get his bottle. And now he's on the Graal. Well, now he's very comfortable with the Graal. He's won plenty of time trials on it in the past, so that's surely not going to be an issue for him. And how much will that have affected his rhythm? Because it only cost him a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. But how will it affect his rhythm and his mentality, his psychology at the moment?
Well, first of all, the reason, that is the question. Why did he change? But where he did make the change there on an uphill section, not losing much time at all, because he just slowed down and then just got on the other bike very, very quickly and getting a push off. So there would be a minimum amount of lost seconds wise. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But the reason is that he didn't feel comfortable from the bike, or was there some little mechanical problem with the bike he started out on?
So Bradley Wiggins continues to have little niggling issues that are affecting his progress in the Giro d'Italia, but he'll race on. Meanwhile, Out on the route, Wilco Kelderman with 40 kilometres to go. And Kelderman pushing hard, the man from Blanco. 26th overall, 1 minute and 55 seconds down on in Shaustey on the overall standings. And a rider that could be perhaps expected to do a decent ride today. Meanwhile, Wiggins is back set in his position. And Orwell's Liam Rosen asks, apparently Nibali has worked hard on his TTing and position this year. Do you and Sean think he can limit his losses to Wiggins? Well, let's hold that question for a moment while we get a slow-mo. He's well up the block there, and we can see the chain bouncing around, but that's the road, I think, as much as anything else. Wasn't any indication of a flat tyre.
Possibly the gears were not in the right. The adjustment, the tuning wasn't perfect, and maybe there was a little bit of problems there. And of course, you know, when you're on the bike, you can feel that, you know, that there's a little bit of noise coming, and for that reason, possibly as well, that he just made the change.
Yeah, even if the gear was still working, it's the noise, and that would be quite off-putting, because you'd be thinking about the loss of power in the transmission, the fact that there's an extra friction in there. And when you're making the big effort, when your body is the engine, you don't want to think that you're giving away any of it through a mechanical issue on the bike. So what about Vincenzo Nibali? Can he limit his losses to Wiggins in this time trial?
Well, I think it's the opportunity for him to limit it quite good, because the route here, the parcours, is certainly one that for Nibali he should be able to, you know, lose less time to Wiggins. We can see here from the start we've been with Wiggins most of the time. You can see it's quite a difficult one, technical as well. There's a lot of descending here, and that's where Nibali can just go real fast into these corners, and, you know, gain half a second here and there on the cornering, and then the difficult part as well, where it kicks up a lot, that will suit Nibali, because if it was totally pan flat, well, then Nibali would be in difficulty to keep the big gear turning all the time, and so it will give Nibali a chance to limit his time loss, but I think he will still lose quite a bit of time to Bradley Wiggins and the other better time trials.
Well, Nibali lost 3 minutes and 38 seconds to Bradley Wiggins in the final time trial of last year's Tour de France. That's 53.5 kilometres long, so that's comparable in distance to this time trial, although that was a much flatter course, much less demanding, technically a lot less demanding as well. Perhaps a better indication too as well might be the middle time trial, 41.5 kilometres. Bradley Wiggins won that as well, and Nibali finished 8th on that occasion with 2 minutes and 7 seconds lost to Wiggins. So over 41.5 kilometres and a slightly choppier course, Nibali lost 2 minutes. If he has improved as a tester this year, perhaps the deficit might even be a little bit less than that. So potentially, if Nibali loses 2 minutes to Wiggins today, would he be satisfied?
I think he would be hoping to lose less than 2 minutes, considering everything here. But again, you know, if he does lose that, well, then you have to, you know, start looking at what's to come, make a tactic for the rest of the days to come, and right through to the end of the race. So you just never know in time trialing, and when you're not a real specialist and a consistent one, that is the thing with Bradley Wiggins. You know, when he's time trialing, he's so consistent, he's a real specialist at it. Nibali, sometimes he can produce quite a good performance, other times he can, you know, lose quite a lot of time against the other big favourites. But in the Tour of France last year, I think he limited quite well on that time trial to Besançon, which was in the earlier part of the race. The final time trial, the race overall classification, the top 3 places in the podium were pretty much decided, and maybe he didn't push as much as, you know, we could have seen if he was fighting to hold his place, his third position in overall.
Wiggins goes for a gel. That's the preferred position to hold a gel for many triathletes, and of course if you've got a skin suit with no pockets, it's pretty much the only place you can put one, short of having it in one of those little pouches on the top tube. But I don't think I don't think Bradley Wiggins, even if it was the aerodynamic advantage, I don't think he'd possibly put it into one of those little pouches on the top tube. But it's difficult to get the gel out when your leg is going up and down like that. And of course, the last thing you want to do is stop pedaling for a moment.
Yes, and the pouch, I don't think it would be good in the wind tunnel.
Certainly wouldn't be good in the style tunnel, Stakes, would it? Keselowski leaves the starting gantry. Yeah. Croatian rider, 10th overall, 34 seconds down, so he's right there or thereabouts. Big man from Radio Shack, Leopard, with big hopes this afternoon. All of these riders hoping to do a ride that will keep them in decent position, and we're going to see another shake-up for general classification. It got a good old rattle yesterday with yesterday's stage. Wonderful performance from Adam Hansen on that occasion. To see how Hansen is got on in the time trial, see if I can find his time. But what a fantastic performance from him yesterday, Sean. I understand he makes his own brand of shoes as well, which is a remarkable thing. He's got a big range coming out at the moment. He's 32 years of age today, in his 5th consecutive Grand Tour as well. He did all 3 Grand Tours last year, the 2nd Australian to manage the feat after Neil Stevens. Due respect to Adam Hansen, one of the workers getting a day in the sunshine. Bradley Wiggins back into position and powering away in this time trial, chasing the time set by the British national time trial champion Alex Dowsett. 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds is the test. The first intermediate split point comes at Pesaro after 26 kilometres. And Dowsett's target time for Wiggins at that point is 36 minutes and 20 seconds. So keep an eye out. It's a good getting on for about 10 minutes away for Wiggins on that one. Yeah, no time bonuses today. Thanks, Paul Bates, asking if there are time bonuses for the individual time trial. No, just for the road stages, but all the road stages, including the mountain stages, which would make it different from most other stage races, including the Tour de France. And Brian Smith, Eurosport commentator, he's pretty much convinced that that was a flat tyre. He could see a little bit of squish there, so he reckons it was a flat for Wigga. Thanks, Brian. Julian Pearce perceives a jerky style approaching the corners. Is this just a way of slowing the bike without using the brakes? And of course the position is so much different on a time trial bike, and when you sit up off the bars it does look so much more different than when you're sitting on the tops. The local cycling club forms a guard of honour for the top professional cyclists in the world, and the man that is the red-hot favourite for honours in this afternoon's time trial. But Bradley Wiggins still has a long way to go to justify that status. Lots of work to do. He has dispensed with Wilco Kelderman and put another man behind him. So that's 3 riders he's caught: Danilo De Luca, Sergio Henao and Kelderman. We didn't see Henao. Next man up, if he can manage it, is Mikael Golas. I'm quite confident he will. In fact, I wonder would he get even further ahead of Pozzovivo is ahead of Golas, then Jose Rodolfo Serpa Perez of Colombia will be a definite opportunity. Oh, there is Henao. Henao had managed to catch Kelderman. Tanel Kangert is at the first intermediate split. Wiggins is out on course. Dowsett leads in the early stages. Bradley Wiggins negotiates another downhill left-hand hairpin and works his way immediately into a very, very bumpy right-hander as he's managing to stay upright and is really scything his way through the field. He's passed several of the riders that started ahead of him already. Danilo De Luca, Sergio Henao, Wilco Kelderman have made way for Wiggins as he is powering around this course, chasing the time, the benchmark time set by the early leader Alex Dowsett, the man from Essex. His time of 1 hour, 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Still the benchmark. 32 seconds faster than Steph Clement of Blanco. Luke Durbridge, third place at the moment, 35 seconds down. Manuele Boaro has put up a good time for Saxo Tinkoff, 45 seconds down on Dowsett. Jesse Sargent, of whom much was expected going into this time trial, well, 6th fastest, fully 2 minutes behind Dowsett. Kesiakov in 8th, Kobo 9th at the moment. We might have hoped for a little bit more from Dario Cataldo of Team Sky, 12th fastest, as we look at Alex Dowsett in the hot seat, watching with interest as his fellow countryman goes about the job of trying to better that time. Alex Dowsett, as I say, from Essex, son of a very good racing driver, actually. Phil Dowsett, top amateur stroke professional driver in Formula Atlantic in the 70s. And I do believe Alex did a bit of kart racing himself in his youth. From Chelmsford, of course. And one of the few professionals, if not the only one, in the peloton that suffers from hemophilia. So it means he's got to be particularly careful, and crashes can have big implications for him. Domenico Pozzovivo of AG2R doing his best out there, but I suspect that Bradley Wiggins will catch him. He's at the halfway point. Wiggins probably just a few minutes away, if even that. And it looked as if Pozzovivo had managed to catch his minute man, so at least he's on a decent ride of sorts. Jose Rodolfo Serpa Perez. Meanwhile, Robert Hessink, a man with ambitions for overall honours in this year's Giro d'Italia, waits for his moment to depart the start ramp. And the question is this the race that Robert Hessink will deliver on his great promise? Much has been expected of him, and he showed plenty of aggression in the last couple of days, right up to the front, and prepared to set the pace, aided by his Lieutenant Kruijswijk. What about Robert Hessink, Sean? Jury's still out on whether he can mount a full challenge. We're only week 1, so long way to go, but he's looked pretty good so far. Yes,
he's getting through quite well so far, and yesterday was I think an Everest day for him, because he doesn't like the conditions we had yesterday in the final 35-40 kilometres. Got through yesterday without coming down, because he does have problems descending when the conditions are not good, and I think he would have been very happy last night to get through the stage without having any problems, considering all the royals that did crash on the very treacherous running.
So Wiggins is making his way through the town of Pescara, coming up to the intermediate split point, and it's looking pretty good. The time he's chasing that of Alex Dowsett. 36 minutes and 20 seconds. Looking good indeed for Bradley Wiggins. Can he maintain this form through to the completion of the race? That's the question, but at the moment he's looking very strong indeed. A couple of tweets in that his number isn't straight, and that's a major style error. Won't be costing him too many watts. It is impossible to get those numbers just absolutely spot on, isn't it? Maybe losing 1 watt there. I think he needs one extra safety pin up the top on the left-hand side. Cadel Evans waiting for his chance to leave. Another man that's capable of putting together good time trial performances, a great all-rounder, great climber, and a wonderfully well, he's really turned into, there was a time when people said that he was a bit of a wheel sucker, but he's been anything but that in the last few years, and a wonderful entertainer in Grand Tour racing, and truly amazingly competitive instinct. In this, well, you might say it's the swan song of his career, but plenty of riders have demonstrated that you can make a Grand Tour career last well into your 30s, well indeed into your late 30s. Cadel Evans currently 6th, 16 seconds down, handy advantage over Bradley Wiggins if he can limit his losses, and well, several would suggest that he's well capable of finishing this time trial within a minute and a half or so of Bradley Wiggins. That would make it honours even heading into the tough mountain section of this race. There is another time trial, of course, just under 20 kilometres on the penultimate day of the race. Oh, and Alex Dowsett's looking pretty nervous there, isn't he? This could be a great moment for him, but he knows what Bradley Wiggins is capable of. Knows it better than most, I think.
Cadel Evans here pushing on, getting a little bit wide in the corner there, but he is starting with a bit more urgency than the other rides that we have seen here, but it will settle him here as we go into the the first kick up here. Just again we see in this corner where he goes close to the wall.
Oh, and look at that. Just taking every risk that he possibly can. Maybe he feels that he's got to take risks on the corners, that perhaps there's an opportunity to close a few seconds here and there on Bradley Wiggins, and that's his big opportunity. Rigoberto Urán, 5th fastest through the time check at Pescara, as Cadel Evans very much in the early stages, and Cadel Evans, Vincenzo Nibali, Ryder Heyjadal, these are riders who are willing to take the odd chance in the corners and perhaps feel that this is their, they really have to take every opportunity that's possibly presented to them.
Well, surprising to see Cadel Evans taking the risk there, very earlier on, because in a time trial you do not have to start full gas and go full into the corners. Later on, when you get the downhill sections, when you're up to speed, well then you can push on a bit. But surprising to see him. I think he got a bit of a surprise himself. He didn't realise it was going to be as tight, but got through it well. We've seen this time trial as we get up this first drag, and then it goes downhill a lot. We were with Bradley Wiggins there, and we could see Bradley, he was just getting around the corners with safety really. He wasn't really pushing into the corners. I think when we see some of the other riders, Nibali for example, it was interesting to see him when we go down. I think he will be just going for the corners much more aggressively, and that's where you can gain the time. It's not in the first couple of 100 metres you really have to do it, but there's a lot of opportunities out on this course where you can make up time if you really push in the technical sections.
Good effort here from Carlos Betancourt in the top 15 through the intermediate split point. He's a diminutive climber from Colombia. As Mauro Sant'Ambrogio, many people's dark horse favourite for, well, it's certainly a decent result anyway in Giro d'Italia of 2013. Man from Vini Fantini, man for the future. What sort of a time trial can he produce? We'll find out in the next hour and a quarter. As Cadel Evans, capable of sustaining a high power rate throughout a time trial. Now confirmation of Bradley Wiggins' time through the first intermediate split. Perhaps not what he would have hoped for. 52 seconds down on Alex Dowsett. 7th on the timesheets, and that's well, it's great news for Alex Dowsett. It's worrying times for Bradley Wiggins, but do remember, of course, he had a bike change in that, and he'll have lost 10, maybe 20 seconds during that. Maybe a little bit of a rhythm issue as well, trying to get back into the groove on a new bike. Wilco Kelderman desperately trying to find a rhythm himself. Sergio Henao and himself embroiled in a bit of a battle. Of course, these riders can't ride in each other's slipstream. the rider that's caught has to make way, and well, there are different rules on it, but some people say about 8 to 10 bike lengths. One bottle jettisoned there. We had a question in, what do they do with all the bottles? Well, there are a couple of designated points where Camelback are sponsoring. You see the signs up there to the right hand side. Camelback have sponsored these green areas, and that is the point to jettison your bottle if you want to get rid of one, and they'll be swept up. And it's about making this race just that little bit more environmentally friendly. There are of course teams that go around behind the race sweeping things up and clearing all the litter, but if the riders adhere to these Camelback green zones, then makes the whole process just that much easier. So where is Bradley Wiggins? Where is his head at the moment? Where are his legs? There's been a few whispers and suggestions that he might be suffering from the same fever that his teammate, or same illness that his teammate Dario Cataldo has been suffering from during the week. That is, I hasten to add, just a little bit of Twitter speculation, and nothing coming from the camp has been, there's no official word to suggest that. But this has not been the first week that Bradley Wiggins would have liked, but he's still very much in contention. So too is Gianpaolo Caruso of the Katusha squad. Luca Paolini, his fellow countryman, both of these riders riding with the Russian cycling project. Branded Katusha. And Caruso, fourth last man to go. We're waiting for Ryder Hejjedal, Vincenzo Nibali and the race leader Benyat Inchausti to leave the starting ramp. 3 minutes between the riders, of course, in the final 10. Final 15 actually for the 3-minute gaps. Cadel Evans powering away. He's a very different shape on a bike to Bradley Wiggins. He's a much shorter rider, of course, a much more compact style. He's got that rounded back, which some people say is not necessarily a penalty. Perhaps doesn't get quite as low over the bike, but well, he's not quite as tall, so he wouldn't be producing much extra in terms of frontal area. Does produce plenty of watts though. Are they as many watts as this man? Bradley Wiggins, he looks good. Oh, and just as I say it, the catches a little pothole there, has to make a very late adjustment. No harm done. Some people are suggesting that Wiggins has lost more time descending than in the bike change. And if that's true, then that offers a big opportunity to the likes of Cadel Evans, in particular to Vincenzo Nibali, as they push to maintain their position. Pinarello Graal is distinctive. I suppose the most obvious difference is the brakes. Front brake behind the front fork on the Graal, and not shrouded anything like the same way as indeed the back brake. Much more conventional in appearance. So Ryder Hejjedal, third last man off the starting ramp, the reigning champion, and just making sure those shoe covers aren't going to stop him from clipping in. And you can see he also on his right leg, just under his shorts there, has a gel. 1 hour and 16 odd minutes of cycling for these riders. Mark Cavendish smiling away and has joined Alex Dowsett in the hot seat, and he's able to enjoy it. He's got through the pain and suffering. 9.5 minutes slower than Dowsett, but well, that won't bother him. He's got through it, and that's the main thing. He's got another tough day in the hills to survive yesterday if he's going to make it to his sprint rendezvous a little bit later in the race. Now, what about Hejjedal? What can he achieve? 6th in the final time trial last year, Sean, and but he had big motivation at that time. Maybe a lot of the other riders in the race didn't. He managed to come up with the goods and get past Joaquim Rodriguez on that occasion. What can he do about fending off the likes of Bradley Wiggins in this?
Well, he's looking impressive in the first week of the race. In the very early stages, very aggressive, and it looks to be comfortable. But we haven't really had a big test for the the over favourites of this race yet, because the terrain hasn't presented that. Today will give an indication, a little indication, not everything, how well they're going, and you have to try and get through this one and stay close to the other men in the general classification. And I mean close, if you're at 30-40 seconds, that is a good performance, no problem whatsoever, no panic. But if you can lose 3 minutes here, 3.5 minutes very, very, very quickly if you're just on a bad day. So that's what they're all trying to do, just limit the losses to the minimum and wait for the further days to come, and the most difficult part, the big mountain stages.
He just got confirmation of the standings as they are at the moment, and this terrific little scrap between Kelderman and Ainau out on course. But it's funny, one rider is caught and suddenly he gets great impetus from the pace being set by the rider that has caught him, and suddenly Ainau is struggling. Did he go out too hard? It would certainly appear as if Kelderman has measured his effort just that little bit better.
And that is something that's very important in a distance we've got today. The time trial, you have to make the calculation that you do not go out too much and give it your all too early and then pay dearly. But Heino seemed to start real fast and did catch Kelderman very, very quickly. But Kelderman is after getting into the rhythm, and possibly that he had difficulty getting into the rhythm the first 10 kilometres, 15 kilometres. But now he seems to be going that bit better, and they're having a real ding dong between them there, because they're overtaking each other a number of times already.
Wiggins hits the hills and gets the roars of support. He's got 52 seconds to close on Alex Dowsett. Alex Dowsett, of course, is not a general classification contender, so from Wiggins' point of view, it's all about how he does against the other GC guys. But there will be a level of concern there, because even though he knows that Alex Dowsett is a top time trialist and a man who's really coming into his form, he knows that perhaps with his reputation and his palmares that he ought to be able to beat Dowsett, so one would suggest that that's going to be his target time. So these perhaps worrying moments, he'll be made aware of his deficit at the first intermediate split point, and it's how he reacts. Well, that's going to be the big question for Bradley Wiggins. Of course, not knowing the other, because he's not starting last or close to the end, he doesn't have the advantage of knowing what the other general classifications are doing out on course. Vincenzo Nibali will, though, because there's only one man to start after him. Just 5 seconds on overall classification time between himself and Benyat Inchausti. And could this be the time that Nibali from Sicily finally provides for Italy in the Giro d'Italia? Crowds are out in a big way and celebrating the performance of Bradley Wiggins of the Sky Pro Cycling squad. Tifosi can by times be partisan, but they know that they're watching one of the greats of world cycling. Not great though when you see spectators putting a hand on the riders. Really, that is just a little bit too much. And Nibali straight off the ramp, throwing it into that left-hander. Completely different attitude, sticks the knee out like a MotoGP rider. He loves it. He was talking yesterday after the stage about how it felt okay, felt like he could pick an apex and slide it into the corners a little bit, and which is
what he did.
I certainly wouldn't try it at home, folks. Not when you've only got
but he didn't come out of the corner, unfortunately.
Work out every corner now.
And it'll be interesting to see with Nibali on the descent, because we did see Wiggins, it looked like that he was really being careful and going quite slow, but again, sometimes in the shade under the trees there we cannot see. If it's a little bit of a damp patches, well then you have to be so careful here today. But I think Nibali, we should have him on the descent. He will be going at a much faster rate around those corners, and that's where he will limit his losses to Wiggins. So it will be interesting times. Luckily that is not a real wet day here, because we have seen Wiggins there on a big part of this time trial circuit, time trial route, and it is very, very technical. If you had the wet roads, well then it would be very, very treacherous, and there would be real problems for all the big favourites. Just how fast can you go, and you always want to push on to the limit, but sometimes in the corners you just have a little bit too much speed on and down you go. And thankfully it's better conditions today, and hopefully it will stay that way. And that is the important thing as well. because, you know, the time trial later on the day you could get a bit more windy or wet conditions, and the wind also is a thing. This is something, you know, it can blow up a little bit more, and possibly the ones who were out early had a little advantage if the wind has got up, and that's something. It doesn't look like there's much blowing much more than it was early in the morning, but still out on the route there that can be the case.
Ryder Hagedal has been very active in this race so far, particularly on that third stage when I think he surprised everyone with his willingness to attack and just using his shoulders and all his body to get on top of the gear again after that left-hander. Slots into the position, and he's really horsing a huge gear out there. Very low cadence, dragging around. Pretty much the biggest gear he's got on the bike as he races down this descent. 5 seconds in arrears. Sorry, 8 seconds in arrears for Hagedal from Inchausti. It's 5 seconds for Nibali, of course. And we saw Michele Scarponi in the distinctive pink of Lampre. 13th overall. 57 seconds down. So now Beñat Inchausti, a great moment for him. He's wearing the Maglia Rosa of race leader of the Giro d'Italia. The man from the Basque Country who just hopes that he's able to come up with a result that will keep him close to the overall contenders. But I wonder, does he really believe it's going to be possible for him to still be in pink at the end of today? Meanwhile, Nibali is right up at the top of his block. Looks like a pretty big one, big sprocket up there as well. Scarponi coming to the intermediate split point, and it's a good effort from him. He's not too far off Dowsett, third fastest.
30 seconds for Scarponi. Wiggins was close at 50 seconds, so it's an interesting one. But again, in that early time check at 26 kilometres, it's very early days. You know, when you're at 30 or 40 seconds, I'm not too concerned about it. And you know, you can really finish strong in the end of this time trial, because it is, you know, very difficult as well in the very end. And the hill up to the finish line here, if you're really strong there, you can pull back 15-20 seconds if you finish real powerful.
So impressive performance from Scarponi, who goes third through the first intermediate split. But as you say, you've got to measure your effort all the way. Sergio Henao was second fastest, just 27 seconds down on Alex Dowsett through that first intermediate split, but he seems to have perhaps gone a little bit deep, a little bit too early. He's engaged in a little bit of a yo-yo scrap with Wilco Kelderman. They're of course observing the rules and not taking pace from each other, but well, not any aerodynamic assistance as Alex Dowsett looking ever more anxious, but perhaps believing that he's got a great opportunity to come up with famous first Grand Tour stage victory in his debut Grand Tour. 27 seconds ahead of Sergio Henao through the first intermediate split. That's at 26 kilometres in Pescara. Luke Durbridge just behind Scarponi by 7 seconds in fourth position. Tanel Kangert behind him by another 5 seconds. Rigoberto Urán 5 seconds behind Durbridge as well, and 42 seconds behind Dowsett. That's the first intermediate split at 26 kilometres. The next split is taken at 51.5 kilometres, just at the bottom of the final hill. And these guys, I think they're attached with a bungee cord, aren't they?
2 up. Surprising they're allowed to ride pretty close here. We've seen them a number of times. The commissar normally comes up and, you know, make you take a distance immediately when some rider goes by, but they are getting a little bit of drafting from each other here, and for the moment they're getting away from it. But you have to be real careful, because you can find yourself getting a time penalty at the end of the day.
Robert McLean wants me to give a shout out to Malden Cycling. It's the home club of Alex Dowsett, duly done. And he'll have learnt his trade, no doubt, on the weekly club 10s and 25s, etc, etc. So Vincenzo Nibali is out and suffering hard to try and limit his losses to Bradley Wiggins at all, or perhaps even get into the Maglia Rosa. Welcome back to stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia, the individual time trial. 54.8 kilometres for the riders as they make their way to Saltara from Gabice Mare. And this is Cadel Evans chasing for glory and pushing hard through these sweeping turns on this descent. Alex Dowsett is the man who currently leads the stage, and he's put up a very, very impressive time indeed. And at the moment, 32 seconds faster than Steph Clement, with the leading general classification contenders out on course. All the riders have left the starting gantry. Last one off, Benyat Inchausti of the Movistar team, who leads the race overall. Bradley Wiggins, 23rd overall, is out there, but disappointing first intermediate split for Bradley Wiggins. 7th fastest, 52 seconds down. And where will he be when he comes to the bottom of the final hill? That's the second intermediate split, 51.5 kilometres. Sergio Henao did a great first sector of the stage for Team Sky, 27 seconds down on Dowsett. Henao, some say, it will be leaving Team Sky at the end of this year. Although it's more likely, I think, that Rigoberto Urán of the two Colombians is the one that is going to step clear. Michele Scarponi of the Lampre squad has done a pretty good first intermediate split to go 3rd fastest, so definitely a contender for honours on the stage, and is going to vault up the leaderboard as well, back into general classification contention. 13th overall at the moment, after crashes early in the week cost him a little bit of time. And Scarponi is he's an old battler, isn't he? He really knows he'll fight his way and scrap his way into contention one way or another. There is the side of Bradley Wiggins, with Cadel Evans showing his facility downhill. Ryder Hejjedal, well, it's a less organised style on a bike. When he gets settled into the time trial position, it's a pretty efficient one, but his eagerness to get on top of the gear, the body moves all over the place. Once he gets that gear rolling, well, it's not a bad position, but there's really nothing to touch Wiggins when it comes to looking good on a time trial bike. Nibali, though, has worked very, very hard on that in recent months.
And different sections of the route, of course, you know, the style. If you're going uphill, you're not in the real aerodynamic position unless you're Bradley Wiggins, but for the other riders it's not as easy to keep the real style time trialing position. And we could see there on, you know, the different on our different pictures, different sections, so it's hard to make the calculation. But, you know, Bradley Wiggins is working very strong here at the moment, going at quite a fast rate. It'll be interesting to see how he can finish, because I think this time trial, it's all about in the final, you know, 25-30 kilometres. If you're really good, that's where you can pull back a lot of time. But if you lose a lot as well, then you're making up a bit. You have to, you know, get through the intermediate time checks, limiting your losses, and then if you can finish strong, you can do a super fast time. But it's definitely going to be an interesting one. We can see Nibali there, he seemed to be working quite well at it, but again, we'll have to wait for the clock to tell the real truth.
Tanel Kangert really looks as if he's struggling, but it's potentially a very good time indeed. Could Tanel Kangert be in position to take this away from Alex Dowsett? Heading towards the top of the climb, and he's inside the barriers. So how far has he got to go within the last 250 metres? And he's got half a minute to do it, so it's looking good for Tanel Kangert. Can he just find the effort necessary to come up with victory in this time trial, or at the very least replace Alex Dowsett at the top of the timesheets? And it's the man from Astana that looks as if he's going to make it across the line in time. He's inside the last 75 metres, 7 seconds, and he just desperately manages to get out of the saddle, no doubt encouraged by his director sportif behind. And no, he goes into second place and just misses out. Tanel Kangert is not going to be the winner of the Stage 8 time trial, and that really is a steep finish. There's an indication of just how long it took him to get through to the finish, and Alex Dowsett breathes a sigh of relief. Puffs out his cheeks as well. He might have looked a little bit dodgy there for a moment, but that really is a steep finish.
Yes, and we could see Tanil Kangert in the 26 kilometres. He was 42 seconds down on Alex Dowsett, so that just gives you an idea. You can lose quite a bit in that first intermediate time check, but then you can make it up as well, because if you start off comfortable and really finish strongly, you can make up a lot of time, and that will be an interesting one, I think, as well, for a lot of the big favourites here. Are they making the calculation? If you go out a bit too strong, you can pay in the end, because the final run to the line here, it's really difficult. We could see it can get there having just difficulty in the final 150 metres getting to the line.
Jonathan Vaughters, the general manager of the Garmin Sharp team, he said, my picks, Ryder, Majidal, needless to say, the reigning champion, and his rider, of course, good because of the length and the technical aspect. In Sjoust he will fly, Nibali as expected, Hessink will surprise, and Cadell will be solid. Interesting, he doesn't, he chooses not to mention Wiggins. Hessink will surprise, in Sjoust he will fly. So perhaps those riders can come up with a good time. Great performance by Tanil Kangert to go second on the timesheets. Alex Dowsett, 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Tanil Kangert goes second, just 14 seconds down. Steph Clement of the Blanco squad, 32 seconds in arrears at the conclusion of the 54.8 kilometres. Luke Durbridge, fourth at the moment for the Orica Green Edge team at 35 seconds. Manuele Boaro of Saxo Tinkoff, 45 seconds down. Then big enough gaps. Patrick Gretsch of Argus Shimano, perhaps not enjoying the hills in this time trial. 1 minute and 48 seconds down. Jesse Sargent, seventh. Oliveira of the Radio Shack team, 2 minutes and 17 seconds behind. Kesiakov and Kobo rounding out the top 10 at the moment. You can be pretty sure that top 10 order is going to change before the end of this time trial. Nibali is one man who will be expected to make it inside the top 10. He wants a little bit more than that. Listen to the cheers. Crowds out in force to cheer on their favourite. It's a punchier style for sure. Any deficit he might have to the other riders on the flat will be negated to a large extent when it comes to the uphills and indeed the descents. Now, what's Wiggins coming up with? 7th fastest at Pesaro.
Wiggins looked to be going at a good pace here, really, just pushing on, and it's the time, to just give it everything now and finish the time trial. With your calculation, if you get that right, finish totally empty, and it'll not be difficult to do that today with the final run to the line here, because of that steep gradient all the way to the finish in the final kilometre. We can see here Nibali also looking good. The style is looking okay at the moment. When a rider really starts, suffering and running out of energy, well, then that's the time. There's a lot of movement on the bike.
So Bradley Wiggins continues to suffer as Einau and Wilco Kelderman are engaged in their personal scrap. One-on-one, they're not allowed draft. That question has come in a couple of times. They're not allowed draft, so they go side by side if they get together. But really, when they should be about 8 lengths apart, 8 bike lengths apart in line astern, unless Kelderman finds that he's just going that much faster and he's able to stay with them. But the commissars could have something to say about that. They'll be paying close attention to it. You can be pretty sure about that. Wiggins pushing hard. Slower at the first intermediate time split, but he is the master of controlling his aggression, controlling his effort, and saving something for that final hill. We got an indication from Kangert of just how difficult it is and how long it takes to get through that last 300 or 400 meters. Bradley Wiggins pushing hard. Couple of contributions from at Vinny T. He says Nibali's cross-chaining bad, so he's a bit too far up the block on the big ring. Not good for perfect transmission of power. But I don't think Nibali's thinking too hard about that at the moment. The other thing he noticed as well is he's timed it. He reckons that on the flat sections, Bradley Wiggins' cadence is 100, so that's pretty impressive stuff. It's a big gear he's hauling. But he's a true pursuiter. He's got plenty of souplesse, and he likes to spin the pedals as much as possible.
Yes, well, to keep the cadence, a real good cadence is important, and Wiggins can do that. And as you get to the end of the time trial, that's where it's really difficult. When the body is getting tired, the legs are, sore, starting to, get into the lactate a bit. It's really difficult to keep, that high cadence. But if you can do that, and that proves that, you're still going quite well. It's when you really start to run out of energy, that's, when you lose that real good cadence. Wiggins once again in this aero position. As we can see, the riders out in front, he's starting to catch some of the earlier starters, and it looks like it's going to be his teammate out there, Henyo.
It's a pretty aerodynamic looking bottle, aerodynamic position from Cadel Evans. Brian Sherlock's been on saying thought they were outlawed by the UCI. Certainly most of the riders you see have conventional shaped bottles, but interestingly enough, Robert Hessink of the Blanco team seems to have an aerodynamic one, so
yes, there's quite
different takes on what the rules are.
Yes, it seems to be. Also we see the defending champion also seems to be Hejdal. He has one also, and I was surprised when I see him starting out because I thought they were not allowed anymore.
Richard Winker's asking, what does cadence mean? It's literally revs per minute, the amount of revolutions of the pedals. And typically riders will ride round about the 90 to 100 pedal revolutions on an easy spin when they're not pushing a gear. The cadence comes down when they hit the hills. And sometimes you see some time trialists, strong men, are able to generate huge power at a lower cadence, might be down around the 80 to 90 mark. 100 is definitely around about the optimum if you can sustain it. Different strokes for different folks as well. Some people have different optimum cadences.
Wiggins and Wiggins there. Actually, it was the Omega Pharma Quickstep rider. He's taking Mikhail Golash, and we can see there, he just goes by him and immediately takes 20 meters there very quickly, and it's an indication that he is going faster, or otherwise that Golash is starting to suffer and slowing down in big time.
Massive difference in speed there between Mikhail Golas of the Omega Pharma Quickstep squad. He's their leading contender, 27th overall going into this stage. 155 down on the leader, and 4 places. He started 4 places ahead of Bradley Wiggins, so he's put 4 minutes into him, and that must be pretty depressing for Mikhail Golas, because he'll be well aware of where Wiggins was likely to start. Given up 4 minutes already, and still quite a bit to go. Cadel Evans takes every inch of road that he possibly can. Still Alex Dowsett at the top of the timesheets. 1 hour, 16 minutes and 27 seconds is the target. Kamil Kangert for Astana has put up Very impressive time, 14 seconds slower than Dowsett. Steph Clement 32 seconds behind. They're the top three at the moment. Cadel Evans hits the intermediate split point in Pescara, and it's looking like a very impressive time indeed. Look at this. Cadel Evans second to Alex Dowsett and faster than Sergio Henao, who was well, very impressive indeed through that first split. As we see Henao and Kelderman, it looks like Henao has finally dispensed with Kelderman. Whether Kelderman will be able to join back up towards the end, well, they've had a great old scrap for what it's worth, but Henao it is that is going to finish a minute and a little bit more ahead of Wilco Kelderman. Driving for the line, chasing the time of Alex Dowsett. He's not going to get to it. He's not going to win. The question is, will he manage to usurp Tanel Kangert in second position? I don't think he's quite going to manage it, because he's got still about 225 metres to go. So the time of Steph Clement in third is the target for Sergio Luis Henao Montoya to give him his full title. Sergio Henao, as he's known better in the team. And this Sky Pro Cycling Colombian rider is clearly a man with a big future indeed. He can climb, we know that, and he also clearly is a pretty good tester. Wonderful time trial performance by Sergio Henao, second through the first intermediate split. He's dropped away a little bit in the second half of this time trial, but still it's going to be a good effort, and Alex Dowsett knows that he's safe again for a little while longer as Henao pretty much falls over the line. A little bit of disappointment for him. 1:17.20 is his final time, 53 seconds in arrears from Alex Dowsett, so not quite as good a second half. Perhaps gave a little bit too much out of the starting blocks and slipped away, but still a solid performance.
I think it's a solid performance. We must remember that, taking nothing from our leader Alex Dowsett, he hasn't been as under pressure in the last number of days as the riders we've seen here on our screens at the moment. Wiggins, Henao, and all the other riders who were up very much in the general classification until yesterday. Of course, some of them slipped down a bit yesterday, so that means a lot as well. That little bit fresher, the guys who are taking it a bit easier, who can afford to do that. But Sergio Henao, I thought we were going to be seen being pulled back by Wiggins, because in the way Wiggins was riding there, it looked like that it was him he was catching, but it was actually Mikael Golas. But we see Wiggins here coming in and finishing strongly.
So here comes Bradley Wiggins. Will he be able to beat the time of Alex Dowsett? It looks like it's going to be a little bit beyond him. Here comes, they're clocking down the time, and Alex Dowsett will be thrilled and relieved that he lasts a little bit longer, but still it's an impressive performance by Bradley Wiggins as he heads across the finish line to complete the individual time trial, second fastest to the time of Alex Dowsett. So good effort from Bradley Wiggins, and quite a bit closer indeed than he was through the first intermediate split after taking a bike change after that early puncture. He's now on the Graal machine. The bolide was consigned to the grass. Bradley Wiggins just 10 seconds down, and he's put it up to the other general classification contenders. You can be sure of that. Whether it's enough for him to get into contention for the Maglia Rosa, that's the real question. And now it's looking a little bit more like Alex Dowsett could well come up with the victory today. So it would be success for Britain, for Alex Dowsett, if he can manage that. But there's still plenty of other top time trialists out on the course, so he's not going to count his chickens just yet. Michele Scarponi has done some very good work through this first intermediate split as well. Third fastest to Dowsett, just 30 seconds down, and he'll know just how to save a bit for the second half of this course. So plenty of riders still out there that can challenge for stage honours and indeed for general classification. Scarponi amongst them, and of course Hejidal and Nibali. You're watching Vincenzo Nibali in the individual time trial, stage 8 of Giro d'Italia 2013. He's just 5 seconds down on the overall lead, held by Beñat Inchausti, who started 3 minutes behind him in this time trial. Nibali takes the opportunity for a little drink as further ahead Cadel Evans gets a new bottle. Will he replace the other one in his bottle cage? Cadel Evans doing a good job out there at the moment. So too Nibali, but the best time of all that's been done today so far, Alex Dowsett of the Movistar squad, 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds is still the fastest time. Bradley Wiggins has failed to beat his fellow countryman, goes to second on the timesheets, 10 seconds down on Dowsett, 4 seconds ahead of Tanel Kangert of the Astana squad. Steph Clement has now moved into 4th place, Durbridge 5th, Boaro, Gretsch, Sargent and Oliveira, and indeed Garate, they round out the top 10 at the moment, but plenty of top time trialists out on course at the moment. One of them is Ryder Hagedal, 6th in the final time trial of last year's Giro d'Italia. That was the stage that helped him to overall success in this race, and he believes that, well, there was all talk about limiting losses to Bradley Wiggins. Now I think maybe they're thinking that, well, they can stay ahead of Bradley Wiggins after today's time trial. Sean, do you think it's possible that we could indeed have the likes of Nibali or perhaps Ryder Hagedal in pink?
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. Of course, you know, Wiggins was quite a bit down at the first time check at that 26 kilometre mark, and then he pulled back and finishing at 10 seconds off Nibali. It's all about being consistent all the way through this time trial, and I will be sure that there will be some of the riders who will put in a good performance to the intermediate time check, the first one, and then have difficulty continuing on that and suffer in the end. And if you do suffer, well then the time it ticks away very quickly, and you can end up losing a lot of seconds, and it can run into minutes. So it's early days yet, because with the favourites really out on the road at the moment, as we come to the first time check, that is the first indicator, but that is not everything at that 26 kilometre mark.
Just got a great sight of the commitment of Vincenzo Nibali through the corners. He really throws it in and gets the knee out, and it's more Valentino Rossi, I think, than Fausto Coppi. Ryder Hagedal too is pretty good on the descents, and working his way through Pesaro through the intermediate split time. It's going to be good enough for position in the top 10, it would appear. Slips behind Tanel Kangert, no disgrace in that. 43 seconds behind 9th fastest, there or thereabouts, giving up time to Bradley Wiggins through the first intermediate split. But remember, Wiggins didn't have a good first half of the time trial, improved significantly in the second half. That bike change from the bolide to the Graal not suiting him too much. Question in, how far behind Inchausti was Wiggins before the time trial? 1 minute and 32 seconds. Inchausti's pretty handy in the tests, so every chance that Inchausti will stay ahead of Wiggins. Question is, will he manage to stay ahead of Vincenzo Nibali, because there's just 5 seconds between Nibali in second place and Inchausti in the lead. We haven't seen too much of the general classification race leader out on the course, Michele Scarponi. We have seen, of course. No surprise that the host broadcaster is focusing on the Italian riders. Scarponi, 13th overall at 57 seconds going into this time trial. So 35 seconds ahead of Wiggins, for what it's worth. And 52 seconds behind Nibali going into this. Meanwhile, back with Vincenzo Nibali. What can he manage in at the first split? 26 kilometres in, around about the halfway point. And crowds a little muted, perhaps. Suddenly they realise that it's their favourite. And the hands start waving, the noise rises to a crescendo. And this is a great time being set by Vincenzo Nibali. Oh, and he's getting that sinking feeling.
Nibali is going to be a bit off the time, it looks like here. Hopefully we'll get back to him as he goes through that 26 kilometre mark as we go back to Cadel Evans here. But again, it looks that Nibali is moving quite strongly, but very difficult to calculate, because when you look at a rider, Cadel Evans here for example, he's on an uphill section. Nibali was going through the streets there, going around the corners, getting the line very well, but it'd be interesting to see just at the 26 kilometre mark what sort of a time, if we can get back to that as he comes through.
Now we're looking at Scarponi, 9th fastest through the split, so he puts Ryder Hajedal behind. Cadel Evans 2nd fastest to Alex Dowsett through that first intermediate split. Dowsett's time of 36.20, 22 seconds faster than Cadel Evans, 27 seconds faster than Sergio Henao. Scarponi 4th fastest, 30 seconds down on Dowsett. Luke Durbridge, Robert Hessink, Tanel Kangert, Rigoberto Uran and the rest. There's been a lot of talk on Twitter about the speculating that Bradley Wiggins crashed, and that's part of the reason that he had to change his bike. Well, I can tell you we didn't see that on screen, and as far as we're concerned it was a flat tire. We have seen some signs of injury on his right leg and right elbow, but of course remember he was down, crashed yesterday, so he is carrying a few little bumps and scrapes. And his switch from the bolide to the
Danielson.
Thomas Danielson in.
It's a long ways off.
Yeah.
4:05 down on the winner.
That's a bit of a surprise, really.
Surprising,
that far back,
yes.
yeah. Thomas Danielson, 16th overall going into this time trial, just under a minute behind. Plenty still to race for. Perhaps he's thinking more about looking for stage results a little bit later in this race. Ryder Hajedal as well is someone that he has to look after, but Thomas Danielson is capable of a good time trial in his day. Perhaps the motivation not quite at the level to really challenge today. Leg's not quite there either, and it's Cadel Evans and Vincenzo Nibali out on course, chasing that 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds of Alex Dowsett, the reigning British time trial champion. Also won it in 2011. Also won the time trial in the 2011 Tour of Britain in London, so plenty of pedigree against the watch. As if you needed confirmation of that fact, the reality is 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds is all you need to know about Alex Dowsett's pedigree against the watch. 10 seconds faster than Bradley Wiggins. Ryder Hajedal all over the bike, starting to feel it. Now we get a first sight of the race leader. This is Benyat Inchausti coming into Pescara. And Inchausti grimacing, as well he might. Oh, and he's losing his form altogether at the moment, and he's stopped pedaling there for a little while. Has he blown it? He doesn't look good, does he?
Well, looks to be suffering at the moment, but again, you know, it's very difficult to calculate, because he's on a section here where it looks like he's just making the gear change. He's lowered his gear a bit and started to get a better cadence to get over this little drag, but looks like to be suffering at this moment. He's looking down a lot, and a lot of movement on the bike, as we can see here at the overall standings.
There's confirmation at the moment. 10 seconds was enough at the end for Alex Dowsett to hold on ahead of Bradley Wiggins. What can he do against the likes of Michele Scarponi, Ryder Hajedal, Vincenzo Nibali, Cadel Evans, Benyat Inchausti, all out on course at the moment. An image is going to set a pretty good time. It's going to head into the top 10. Will he have enough in hand to hang on ahead of Rigoberto Urán? Scanning down the timesheets at the moment, looking for David Miller's name. Mark Cavendish at the moment, 151st. David Miller, I can tell you, tough day for him. It was more about just winding his way through the time trial. 176th fastest, 14 minutes and 10 seconds down for David Miller. So clearly he's feeling the effects of this very, very tough first week of Giro d'Italia. He's a great tester in his day, but this is not to be the day for David Miller. Not quite to be the day for Nimic as well. He slips out of the top 10. Still a very solid performance from the Lampre man. Stops the clock in 1 hour 18 minutes and 40 seconds. Still faster than 25 miles an hour. Scarponi, as I said, 57 seconds behind heading into this time trial. Now he's in the finishing barriers, but still a long way to go. He's got 350 meters, and can he manage that in 17 seconds? Well, I don't think so. So Dowsett looking good, but this is looking like a very impressive time indeed from Michele Scarponi. So much talk about how much time he would lose to Bradley Wiggins. Now the question is, will he be ahead of Bradley Wiggins after this time trial? So great time being put up by the Lampre man, Michele Scarponi, the old stager. A colourful figure in the world of cycling, grimacing as he makes his way to the finish line. He's going to be behind Wiggins, but definitely limiting his losses. Had 35 seconds on Wiggins going into this time trial. And Wiggins, remember, was 10 seconds behind Dowsett. So 45 seconds, when 45 seconds pass as well, he's going to be hold on to his position ahead of Wiggins for what that's worth. Great performance by Michele Scarponi. Slips to 6th fastest. Alex Dowsett is almost afraid to smile, but perhaps now he's starting to believe that it's possible. Scarponi just misses out to Sergio Henao, but great effort from him. 1 hour 17 minutes and 20 seconds is good enough for 8th fastest. 53 seconds behind Dowsett, so he does slip just a little bit behind Wiggins, but almost honours even between them. So it's hotting up nicely. What can Vincenzo Nibali come up with in the time trial? We'll find out after these few messages. Very welcome back to stage 8, the individual time trial of the 2013 Giro d'Italia. Ryder Hagedal is pushing through the crowd on his way to the first intermediate split point at 26 kilometers. I can tell you the fastest man through the first intermediate split was Vincenzo Nibali, 8 seconds faster than Alex Dowsett. Dowsett tops the timesheets at the moment, as he has done for most of the afternoon. The young Englishman in his first Grand Tour has 10 seconds over Bradley Wiggins on those riders that have completed the course. Vincenzo Nibali still out there and going very well indeed, 8 seconds faster than Dowsett. And for what it's worth, fully a minute faster than Bradley Wiggins. Wiggins didn't have a good first half of the test though. Nibali is 51 seconds faster than Ryder Hagedal, who was 10th fastest through the split. Cadel Evans a half a minute behind Nibali. So Nibali going very well indeed. There's been all this talk that he's improved his position. He's been in the wind tunnel in Brackley, we understand, and it seems to be paying dividends. Of course, this test suiting him with lots of technical, lots of cornering, lots of descent, and indeed the ascents would not be a massive penalty to him either. Great facility up a hill. Cadel Evans too likes to go around corners. And contrast as Nibali is working his way up the ascent, while the flat road a little bit further ahead, Cadel Evans powers away on the biggest gear that he can manage. Question, why is Alex Dowsett not wearing his national TT Champions jersey? Well, he's put on a Movistar jacket, I guess, while he's waiting at the finish. It's critical, even in relatively warm conditions, for these riders, very low body fat percentages, that they keep warm and manage their body temperature. but he certainly was wearing his national champion's skin suit when he was out on the course, so he certainly wore the colours while he was performing, and no doubt those pictures will be available, especially if he manages to hang on to the lead. He's been sitting there for such a long time with that time of 1 hour 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Benyadin Shausti wearing Maglia Rosa, also showing the colours well. What can he do about hanging on to his position in the overall? Well, it's looking a little bit of a concern from at the moment with such a great performance by Vincenzo Nibali through that 26-kilometre point of Pesaro. And Inchausti gets out of the saddle again and desperately trying to get on top of the gear. Maintain the cadence, maintaining the concentration. That's the big thing, isn't it, Jean? This is about concentrating. It's about embracing the pain. It's about focusing and suffering like never before.
Yes, concentration is a big part of the time trial, and you have to, think of a number of things. First of all, to keep the cadence that you feel that you can keep, that you are comfortable with, and also to make your calculation over the full distance that you can hold out here. Also the descending part as well, you have to register that in your mind from the previous ride out in the morning and all of that. But if you start to really suffer, then you start to think, lose that concentration and think about different things. I'm not really on a good day, am I losing much time in the other favourites, and you have all that extra in your mind. So when you're going well, you just can focus on the number of things that you really need to concentrate on, and just get on with the job. And when it's good, well, then you can just push on a bit more. And if you're really on a good time as you go through the intermediate checkpoints, you're made aware of that. Well, that gives you that boost of confidence, and it's amazing how deep you can go then in the final. But when you start to lose earlier, it's hard to recover and limit your losses, because, as I said, the concentration, you lose it a bit, and then you lose time from there out.
In terms of preparation, would you generally ride the whole course, all 50 kilometres in the morning, or would you just focus on little bits of it?
No, I think you would ride all the course. You would get out in the morning time and ride the course at a casual pace, and that way you would get to know the descent, and it's fresh in your mind, because we do hear of riders going out a number of weeks before the big tours and wrecking some of the routes like the time trials, but you can have difficulty remembering it then. So if you do it in the morning, well, then it's fresh in your mind.
Stefan Kreuzvik finishes 45th for the Blanco man, who's done great work so far for Robert Hessink in this race. Strong performance, but takes it relatively casually up to the finish. Doesn't want to go too deep, I guess, with big mountains tomorrow. Vincenzo Nibali pushing hard on the descent. You can see that there's been plenty of rain in the region and little patches of dampness in the clouds, and that's always a little bit of a concern for the riders. A little less so though for Vincenzo Nibali. Just doesn't seem to lack for commitment when it comes to cornering, regardless of the surface conditions. How much of a warm-up would you do before a time trial? I mean, how long did it take you to get the legs going?
Well, I think you would do on the time trial this morning. You would have to do the route, of course, and which is the 50 kilometres, and then you would make your way back by car, of course, to the start again, and go to your hotel and start preparing as you normally would. And before the off half hour, 45 minutes, you would start warming up on the rollers, and some riders like to start a little bit later and keep on going to the very close to your off time. Other riders would stop maybe for 15 minutes before they would go out, maybe 20 minutes before they would have their off time, and it's just a matter of what way you perform best.
Cadel Evans looking good. Pain is etched on his face, and he's certainly producing plenty of sweat, plenty of watts too. Lovely, powerful, compact style. Gets out of the saddle just to try and make sure that he can keep on top of that gear. Cadel Evans is going well to this point in the time trial, and will be given great heart, I think, by the time checks that he's got so far. Remember, he was third fastest through that intermediate split point. Half a minute down on the time now that's set by Vincenzo Nibali. 22 seconds down on Alex Dowsett. Samuel Sanchez completes in 23rd position, loses 3 minutes and 17 seconds. That perhaps answers a question. There was an awful lot of talk before this race about whether Sanchez was coming for the overall, or perhaps he'd be looking more towards stage success. I think at this point maybe that might be the answer for Sanchez. He might look towards stage glory from now on. Beñat in Inchausti. Nice position and good cadence from him. Damien Barrett says, wish I'd followed up on that tip for Dowsett before the stage. He was 50-1 to win today. Would have been well worth a punt. Will it be a good bet for the win or a good bet on the each way? Because at the moment he sits atop the timesheets. 10 seconds to the good, ahead of Bradley Wiggins of those riders that have completed, but Vincenzo Nibali fastest out on course at the halfway point. Rider Hejidal, good solid test from him, faster than Bradley Wiggins, but behind Scarponi, Evans and Nibali of the leading contenders through that first intermediate split point. Hejidal giving up 51 seconds to Vincenzo Nibali. That will be of concern to him.
Yes, I think it will be certainly a concern, because Hejidal, he would be expectant, you know, to pretty much be the better time trialist than Nibali, but Nibali starting real fast here and putting in a very fast forced intermediate checkpoint, and if he can keep on top of that, well, then it's looking real good for Nibali. But Hejidal as well looks to be, you know, going okay here, as we see him catching Caruso from the Katusha team, but again maybe he is probably you know, not the better time trial, suffering a bit, but you can you know, finish quite strongly. Hejidal, for me, he looks to be starting to suffer a bit. He's losing a little bit of his cadence, but he's a rider that do, you know, turn a bigger gear and not a real high cadence, so I wouldn't take too much from that.
Now we see Ivan Santoromita of the BMC squad. All eyes, of course, on Cadel Evans to see how he's getting on, but Santoromita too, of course, is of big interest to the Italians, and lying in 8th overall, just 28 seconds down at the moment on this man on your screen, or at least somewhere in the middle of the trees. Beñat in Inchausti, and Santoromita as perhaps one for the future. Inchausti pushing hard on the descent. Now Vincenzo Nibali dips his head, feeling the pain. Cadel Evans now within 5 kilometres of the finish of this time trial. This finishing climb is a real tester, though. It ramps up in the last kilometre dramatically. The last kilometre, well, last half a kilometre is at 11.2%. The last 4 kilometres are at around about 3.6%. He's still on the flat road at the moment. Very shortly, though, and he'll be well aware of it, having recce'd the course. So what we're seeing now is not Cadel Evans at absolutely full pelt, because he has to save something for that finish. It's very, very close to the maximum that he can achieve, but not quite absolutely at the maximum. He'll just stay bubbling under there and just leave himself somewhere to go when it comes to that last ramp. Beñat Inchausti on the right-hand side, winding his way through an altogether more technical element of the course. 27 years of age, from the Basque Country. Started with the Scott squad, moved across to Fuji Servetto in 2009, then to Euskaltel, as you might expect for a Basque rider, and for the last 3 seasons he's been a part of the Movistar team. Took the overall GC in Vuelta Asturias last year, and second in Pevasco in 2010. And of course he was third in the individual time trial in Play Vasco this year, so he's definitely a pretty strong contender against the watch. Cadel Evans, 8th fastest through that split, so that's a disappointment, slipping away a little bit. Peter Weening, sitting in 9th overall, just under half a minute behind the Orica Green Edge man, suffering to the end of that time trial. Meanwhile, Vincenzo Nibali powers on. Looks to be working well on the bike. Moves around though, he often adjusts his position, and we've seen that in time trials last year in the Tour de France as well. He sort of goes for 30 seconds or so and then adjusts his position on the saddle. Never looks entirely comfortable. Cuts through the wind pretty well, but always having to make those little adjustments. So Cadel Evans has slipped back a little bit. And this is good news for Alex Dowsett. Good news too for the other overall contenders. Now he hits the final hill. How much has he saved? Perhaps in that middle section just decided to coast it a little bit. Might be able to charge up this final hill. Looks to be hitting a good rhythm. He's able to stay out of the saddle for sustained amounts of time. So Cadel Evans pushes hard. But it's Alex Dowsett that's on the top of the timesheets, and let's get a sight of the reigning British time trial champion, resplendent in those colours, as he pushes towards the line. And this was him as he powered towards that finishing hill. Another beautiful style on a bike, as you might expect. A little bit of agony, but looked very cool, calm and collected, very controlled to the finishing hill, and that was probably technically a very, very impressive performance by Dowsett, that he was able to go across the line without looking in too much pain. He obviously just measured his effort absolutely to perfection. I'd say it probably did hurt quite a lot, in fairness to him. Cadel Evans still looking good, Sean.
Yes, he's still working quite good at it, and still looks to be have quite a bit left here. But of course, you know, the final kilometre is the one where you really see the rider suffering. But I think everybody, if you're not suffering, well then you haven't got any objective in the time trial today. But if you're going for a time and going for a place in the general classification, well then you have to finish in the final meters really on the limit and just totally empty.
This is just over 3% this section, more of a false flat than anything else. Evans gets out of the saddle to try and drag himself back into the cadence that he needs to really feel on top of that gear. Meanwhile, Inchausti on the flat road before he gets to this hill. Nibali is out on course as well. Seen too much of Mauro Sant'Ambrogio as well, the Vinny Fantini squad. He's out there. Started behind Evans. Caruso we've seen some of. He's 4th overall at the moment. Rider Hejidal too. 3rd last off the ramp, Nibali and Inchausti. Those are the men out on course. So Cadel Evans still with a couple of minutes left as he hits the really, really steep ramp at the finish. This is the real tester inside the final 700 meters, and this is going to feel like about 700 kilometers, I can tell you, as we see Hessink heading towards the finish. Robert Hessink, 1 hour 17 minutes and 49 seconds is good for a top 10 position at the moment, but he gives up 1 minute and 22 seconds to Alex Dowsett. That means 1 minute and 12 seconds ceded to Bradley Wiggins. The jaw set for Cadel Evans. Characteristic determined style. He won't lack for determination, you can be pretty sure about that, but can he make it to the top within a minute? How much has he saved for this hill? Looked as if he was fading after that first intermediate split point. As it was, he was 22 seconds behind Dowsett at that point. But, well, he's still got 37 seconds left if he's to get past Alex Dowsett, but it's going to be a bit of a tough ask for him. Meanwhile, Vincenzo Nibali approaches that final hill. Here comes Cadel Evans into the final 350 metres. I don't think he's going to make it. Looking good for Alex Dowsett to hang on for a little while longer. Still plenty for Cadel Evans to push for, bearing in mind the overall classification. That's the main consideration for him. Stage honours would be of secondary importance. 7 seconds left for Dowsett and 250 metres to go, so Dowsett is going to hang on for a little while longer. Meanwhile, Cadel Evans is in a world of hurt as he pushes to the top of this hill, encouraged by all the spectators at the side banging the boards as best they can, and Cadel Evans can hear nothing at this point except his heart pounding in his chest as he pushes to the line. Not going to be in the top three. Can he beat the time of Steph Clement? He's 9 seconds to complete those last 100 metres, and Alex Dowsett is starting to enjoy this experience. No doubt his heart is in his chest as well. Sixth fastest for Cadel Evans, 1 hour 17 minutes and 6 seconds. It's a good solid performance in the time trial for Evans. Where will it be in relation to Nibali? That's the real question. So Alex Dowsett continues to lead by 10 seconds from Bradley Wiggins, 14 seconds to Tangert. Benyat Inchausti spins the pedals as he drives towards the finish line. Inchausti was, well, he was 15th fastest through the first intermediate split, 1 minute and 5 seconds down on Vincenzo Nibali, so it's looking very unlikely at this point that he's going to be wearing that Maglia Rosa again tomorrow. Pretty much impossible, I would say. Whether he'll manage to hang on for a top 10 position, well, that's probably the real goal at this point. Minute and 5 seconds down. He's well, he's 5 seconds down on Bradley Wiggins through that first split, but I will say it again, was not a good first half of the time trial for Bradley Wiggins. Had to change from the Pinarello Bolide to the Pinarello Grau. And Nibali starting to suffer. These little drags are taking their toll. Maintaining that position, maintaining his perfect form is proving increasingly difficult. Was an absolutely extraordinary first half. Can he maintain it through the second half? Meanwhile, we haven't seen too much of the reigning champion Ryder Hagedal in the last few moments. Hagedal within the last 6 or 7 minutes of this time trial. Still looking good. Cadel Evans will cool down on the rollers for a little while and contemplate his performance. Great relief having put the pain away into its box for another day. But will he be satisfied with that performance? Cadel Evans, 6th fastest, 39 seconds down on Alex Dowsett.
And of course, I suppose the main thing for Cadel Evans is the other favourites who has been in there already finished. He's going to be looking at the times, and especially Bradley Wiggins, who was 10 seconds down. So not a bad time trial. I think Evans will be happy enough with that one, considering Evans he is a good time trial, but I think that performance he should be happy enough with it. It will all depend now. Hajdal, Nibali, those riders, what sort of a time they will put in. But we could see Nibali there. He seems to be starting to suffer. Also Hajdal, I think. Seem to be suffering a bit more than when we see Cadel Evans at this point.
So has Nibali blown a gasket, or will he have enough to produce a performance that could conceivably usurp Alex Dowsett? There are the provisional standings. 10 seconds to the good ahead of Bradley Wiggins. Taggart at 14 seconds. Steph Clement of the Blanco team, great performance for him to come up with 4th fastest time, just over half a minute behind Dowsett. Luke Durbridge 5th for the Orica Green Edge team, and his fellow Aussie Cadel Evans 6th fastest at the moment, just 39 seconds down on Dowsett. And yet in Chousty, rolling that big gear along, and no doubt his back is in searing pain. That's another reason they get out of the saddle for a little while as well, just give a little bit of relief to that back, because that is a very tough position to maintain.
We'll see there was Ryder Hajdal as he went through the checkpoint there. He was over 2 minutes down, so he seems to be a long ways off at the moment. And at this point, very late, if you're a long ways down in the general classification, not going to make much on the final climb here, because I think everybody is getting pretty tired. You can gain a number of seconds, but not a vast amount.
So Nibali inside the last 4 kilometres. The road is starting to rise. A quick update on the general classification as it stands at the moment. Cadel Evans, of those riders that have completed the course, remember, of those riders, then Cadel Evans is 46 seconds ahead of Robert Hessink. Bradley Wiggins 47 seconds behind Evans. Michele Scarponi of the Lamprey team 55 seconds behind. Sergio Henao 5th of those riders, 1 minute and 42 seconds in arrears. Oh, and this is the anxiety for Alex Dowsett.
Yes, he's been going through a lot for the last number of hours, because going out so early in the day and posting up the best time, you're in that hot seat for many hours, and he has been there, and there has been quite a few riders through in the earlier part, let's call it, who are very good time trials, but when the favours start to come, that is worrying times, and he is certainly been worrying a lot, as we can see on the screen when it comes up there, and at the moment he's still holding off. I think he's going to be concerned about Nibali, because the fast time that he posted in the earlier time checks, that is going to be the concern for him. Can he keep it going? That is the question, and that is the concern for Alex Dowsett.
Concerns too for Ryder Hajdal. What's he got left on the tank on this final hill? Reports from the course suggest that well, he's still just got 2 minutes left to get to the top of the hill, and he's coming to the final kilometre. 1,600 metres remaining for Ryder Hajdal. It's a long way up this hill. Alex Dowsett, I don't think, has a whole lot to worry about. Hajdal 51 seconds in arrears after 26 kilometres, unless there's a complete revolution on the timesheets. Having said that, Wiggins went 49 seconds faster in the second half of this time trial. Just left too much in the first half. So it's possible, if you've paced yourself well, that you can make big gains, but well, it would be a bit of a shock if Hajdal managed to upset the apple cart like that. And Chousty putting hard. As I said, some reports from the course that Nibali has been descending faster than Cadel Evans. What sort of power has he been producing on the flat and on the ascents? That's the question. And Alex Dowsett manages a wave, but I can assure you his heart is in his mouth at the moment. Now Vincenzo Nibali hits the finishing barriers. Ryder Hagedal is inside them as well. Nibali is chasing Hagedal, remember, who started 3 minutes ahead of him. Not going to catch him, but what can Hagedal come up with? He's hit the serious finishing ramp. It must feel like hitting a wall. They literally turn right and it ramps up to as much as 11%. These final 700 meters will be absolutely agonizing. It really is a cruel person that chooses this finishing course. And Hagedal is giving up time, not just to Alex Dowsett, of whom he won't be too concerned, but to Bradley Wiggins, and this could be considerable loss for Hagedal, not looking as strong as he did a few days into the race. Not, of course, expected to be as strong as Bradley Wiggins in the time trial. The expectation would be that he would trade quite a bit of time, but the times we're seeing from Cadel Evans and Vincenzo Nibali out on course, well, this will be of concern to Hagedal, because he could well be trading time to lots of the general classification contenders, and he's really suffering, Sean.
Yes, he's in difficulty here. We could see, compared to Cadel Evans, for example, he was, climbing that much better, and he did suffer on that final 200 metres big time. As we can see, Hagedal in real difficulty, just digging in and trying to limit his time losses. He knows that he's going to lose time, limit his losses as much as possible.
So we're hearing confirmed reports it was a puncture for Bradley Wiggins. That created the enforced spike change, and well, it definitely cost him 10 seconds, didn't it? Vincenzo Nibali gathers greater roars from the crowd, and Nibali has caught him past, of course, Gianpaolo Caruso. We just got a shot of him behind. The pain is almost over for Ryder Hagedal, but what has the trade been in terms of time? Desperately hoping that he can get to the end of this time trial. Could well be, well, he's well outside the top 10. And still 150 metres to go as he drags his weary body up his final few metres, and those long slender legs absolutely filled with lactic acid at the moment. Alex Dowsett less concerned with the performance of Ryder Hagedal, and more, I think, with what Vincenzo Nibali is doing behind him. It's 17th fastest for Ryder Hagedal, 1 hour 18 minutes and 50 seconds. He trades 2:23 to the leader. Now Nibali inside the final 250 metres. He's got, well, I don't think he's going to make it 20 seconds to beat Dowsett's time, but they've plenty to cheer for, because this is going to be an epic performance from Nibali. There's going to be virtually no trade whatsoever to Bradley Wiggins. If there is just a few seconds here or there, he's definitely not gone as fast in the second half of this time trial as Bradley Wiggins has, but for Nibali, well, it's going to represent a victory. Alex Dowsett looking increasingly likely to take stage honours. There are still other riders out on course though, but Nibali will be delighted with this performance, and it breathes a sigh of relief. You see that relief for Alex Dowsett, but look at this time from Vincenzo Nibali, 1 hour 16 minutes and 46:47. The clock moves on to 48 seconds, 1 hour 16 minutes and 48 seconds. It's fourth fastest in the time trial, 21 seconds behind Alex Dowsett, and more importantly for Vincenzo Nibali, just 11 seconds slower than Bradley Wiggins. There's confirmation of the standings. Wiggins at 10 seconds from Dowsett, who's surely going to be confirmed as the stage winner within the next few minutes. And Nibali fourth fastest, he'll be delighted with that. In Shaustey now, heading towards this final hill within the last few kilometres. Not going to have the Maglia Rosa on his back at the end of today. It's been a fighting performance from the young Basque rider. Still though, it's going to be a solid performance. And what a great performance by Alex Dowsett of Chelmsford. Reigning British champion for the last 2 years in the individual time trial. And that rare thing amongst professional cyclists, a hemophiliac, who's managed to shrug off that affliction, and it certainly shows that there's no reason to for these little things that are thrown at you in life to prevent you from doing things. Beñat Inchausti hits the finishing barriers, moves across to the right-hand side of the road. Perhaps he feels he'll get a little bit of shelter there. Shorter route around the next corner. Superb performance by Dowsett. Superb performance too, Sean, by Vincenzo Nibali. He'll be thrilled with that.
Yes, he will be thrilled, and of course, it looks like he's going to be the new race leader at the end of today's stage. Inchausti has a long ways to go, and a difficult final kilometre here. And as we've seen with everybody finished there, it's just a struggle to get to the line because the gradient is really steep, and in the end of a long time trial of over 54 kilometres, you're finishing totally empty, and just a fight to get to the line. But Nibali, a really good performance from him, because against the Bradley Wiggins, losing just 11 seconds, that is a magnificent performance. Cadel Evans also limiting his losses, but it's very, very tight on the top of the general classification for everybody.
Well, Alex Dowsett can celebrate now, because Beñat Inchausti is still out on the course, and he's not going to beat his time. The time has already clicked past, and Alex Dowsett, in his first Grand Tour for the Movistar squad, takes the individual time trial in Stage 8. Still over a kilometre of pain and suffering for Beñat Inchausti. Still got to hit that really, really steep ramp, so well, sometimes it's tougher for the guys that aren't able to go as fast, because they've got to stay out there longer. It's still an overcast here, and that might match the mood of Inchausti, who knows that he won't have the pink of race leader on his back tomorrow. Still, it's been no doubt a thrill for him to be able to wear the Maglia Rosa. As you say, Vincenzo Nibali likely to have the jersey at the end of this. Indeed, he will. Vincenzo Nibali 29 seconds to the good ahead of Cadel Evans. Robert Hessink, third place overall on the calculated times at the moment. 1 minute and 15 seconds behind Vincenzo Nibali on the overall standings. Bradley Wiggins 1 minute and 16 seconds in arrears, and that's going to be a big ask for the Englishman. He's got just under 20 kilometres of time trialling, but it's a hill climb, of course, remember, later in this race, but plenty of climbs to get over as well. So can Bradley Wiggins back up his success in last year's Tour de France with victory in the Giro d'Italia? Well, Vincenzo Nibali, Cadel Evans, Robert Hessink and a few others believe that it's going to be difficult for him to do it. And we haven't seen too much of this today. The spectators running alongside. Those barriers tend to keep them in, but just got a little bit overexcited, and the dragon roars to support Beñat Inchausti as he makes his way to the line. But the winner of this time trial, he went out a long time ago. And Beñat Inchausti is hating every moment of this. He's going to struggle to even be in the top 30, or could even be further back than that. So some hope indeed that Beñat Inchausti, with some decent time trial performances under his belt in the last couple of years, might be able to do something about staying in contention, but it wasn't to be. That jersey perhaps a heavy weight on his shoulders, and Inchausti at this stage just wants to survive to the end. He drops some promotional material in front of Inchausti's wheels, but not causing him any difficulty. He's barely aware of it At this stage, he can barely feel or see anything as he works his way to the line, outside the top 30 indeed. And so the final rider of the 201 riders that headed off from Gabice Mari to Saltara in this 54.8 kilometer time trial today is Beñat Inchausti Eluriaga of the Movistar squad. The Basque rider completes the time trial. 41st for him, 4 minutes traded to Alex Dowsett. Alex Dowsett is confirmed as the winner of stage 8, and Vincenzo Nibali, with that performance, will go into the Maglia Rosa. So here's confirmation of the finishing order of the Stage 8 time trial. Alex Dowsett takes his first Grand Tour stage victory ahead of his fellow countryman Bradley Wiggins, just 10 seconds between them. Tanel Kangert with a surprise but very impressive third place for the Astana squad, just 14 seconds behind. Vincenzo Nibali, though, will be thrilled to just trade 11 seconds to Bradley Wiggins, finishing 4th overall ahead of Clement Durbridge. Cadel Evans, good performance for him in 7th place, less than 40 seconds behind Dowsett and less than half a minute behind Evans. Manuele Boaro came up with a good one, as we half expected. Sergio Henao, that was a great time trial performance for him, within a minute of the winner. Michele Scarponi too will be satisfied with his afternoon's work. Some of the other overall contenders down through the line, and Robert Hessink in 11th place will be also satisfied. He's currently lying in 3rd as a result of that. Patrick Gretsch wouldn't have enjoyed the hills as much. Still good solid time trial performance from him. Ryder Hagedal there in 18th position at the conclusion of affairs, 2 minutes and 23 seconds behind Dowsett. And Inchausti, well, he can barely walk after that, and his legs will be feeling pretty rubbery. Nibali is confirmed as the leader of Giro d'Italia with almost a half a minute advantage over Cadel Evans. Robert Hessink 1.25 minutes in arrears from Nibali, but still in contention. Bradley Wiggins now moves up to 4th position from 23rd, but well, he was hoping perhaps to end the day in pink. He's got 1 minute and 16 seconds to make up on Nibali. Scarponi's in contention. Ryder Hagedal disappointed perhaps a little bit with his time trial performance, but he's still right there in 6th position.